We always talk about when you're writing the story of your own life, never allow another man to hold the pen. Period. Period. We have a gap to close. And here's the real stat for you. We've got 12 consecutive division game losses. We've been outscored by our opponent 358 to 158. That's 16.6 per game. We have a gap to close. All right, showing up is the first step. Showing up is the first step, guys. How we grow and how we close that gap is going to depend on every person in this room, including me, myself. You guys feel me on that? That's real. 12 losses. That ain't for that ends this year.
The New York Jets are 3-2. We've got the Green Bay Packers this week. We're headed to Lambeau Field. The boys have looked really, really good thus far. Zach Wilson has been back, has been playing very effectively. He looks more comfortable in this offense. We've got Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers up next. Can the Jets go 4-2 before heading to Denver to face the Broncos? Well, not gonna lie to you, I feel pretty good about it. You know what time it is. Let's go.
I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you won a loss? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man. I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you won a loss? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man.
Congratulations, brother.
And if you had told the New York Jets and the New York Jets fan base in the offseason, after training camp, even during preseason, that they would be sitting at 3-2 with a legitimate chance to go into Lambeau Field to beat the Aaron Rodgers, we would have all told you, you're absolutely insane. But here we are going into week 6, and legitimately, the Jets have a shot at beating the freaking Packers at Lambeau Field. Now, before we jump the gun, let me explain. Okay, let me explain. The Jets just came off a pretty impressive win against the Miami Dolphins. And again, regardless of what everybody tells you, the score at the end of the day was 40 to freaking 17. We could have spotted those guys an additional 2 touchdowns in that game to make them feel better about their situation with Teddy Bridgewater being out or Tua being out, and they still get blown out in the game, or they still lose. 40 to 17 is an indication of a team right now that has a lot more concerns than just Tua or Teddy Bridgewater. But I digress. Maybe it's more of an indication of what the New York Jets have become and are becoming. With that said, up to the next freaking game. And that game is against Aaron Rodgers and the struggling Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field. They just came back from freaking London after playing the Giants, and they lost. They lost against the Giants. And oddly enough, man, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be the case. The New York Giants are very much a franchise right now in a rebuild. How they're winning games, how they're 4-1 can only be, associated with the fact that they have better coaching. Because on that roster, talent-wise, the wide receivers don't play. They're always on the sideline collecting paychecks. And Saquon Barkley looks like, Saquon of old. But they're very one-dimensional, and yet somehow, some way, they're 4-1. I digress. They beat the freaking Packers. That means the Jets coming in, who I believe is a much more well-rounded team with way more talent and a defense that can go ahead and match up very well against their particular offense. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's look at the numbers. We've got DJ Reed, we've got Sauce Gardner, we've got Michael Carter. There isn't a single wide receiver on the freaking Packers that you would consider to be a wide receiver number 1. Seeing what these guys have done to the likes of Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mark Andrews, you got to feel pretty good about the fact that we're going up against second and third wide receivers, wide receiver 2s and 3s. And their one guy, Christian Watson, who I was very, very high on coming out of college, is not playing due to injury, which means they're left with predominantly Randall Cobb being their biggest threat at wide receiver. I guess some of y'all would say Lazard could potentially be a threat, but ultimately this year, we really haven't seen him excel at the role of being, a favorite target of Aaron Rodgers. Now, I digress. In order for us to win this game, I think a couple things have to happen. One, on defense, we're going to have to get a little bit comfortable in putting our DBs in man-to-man coverage. And the reason I say that is because the strength of the Packers offense is in their running game. The running game with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon has been terrifying. They continue to be one of the top running back duos in the league. And I believe that's what really has kept them in games throughout this freaking first half of the or first portion of the season. So if we go man to man, I believe wholeheartedly that DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, and Michael Carter can eliminate their wide receivers one on one. Leave those guys on the island against those guys, and I think our guys come out on top 10 times out of 10. That's exactly how I feel about the receiver group. Now, Aaron Rodgers has not been the Aaron Rodgers of times past, an individual that can go ahead and elevate players to go ahead and excel and exceed. In fact, Aaron Rodgers right now has only 10 passes of 15 plus yards completions or more. I think he's like 26 in the league. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he's got one more than I think it's Baker Mayfield. And the Panthers aren't doing that well. So Aaron Rodgers right now is struggling. You saw a lot of frustration in the press conferences after they lost that game against the Giants. So there's obvious concern about their next game. The thing is this, right? If our defense can match up with their offense, we're in a very good spot because I believe we have the defensive line that can go up against their offensive line. We have the defensive backs that can go up against their wide receivers. So if those guys are holding their own, those linebackers need to go ahead and play a big role in this week's game. I think slowing down the run is going to be important. With that said, linebacker play is going to be key. We think that Quincy Williams may be able to come back from injury. If we can have a 3 linebacker set of CJ, Quan Alexander, and of course Quincy, we're in a really, really good position to go ahead and see those guys potentially hold down the fort and keep that run to a minimum. Now, against the Miami Dolphins, a lot of people are going to say the New York Jets got torched by the running game, blah, 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 blah. Listen, we had to pick our poison. In that particular game, the poison was this. Either we let Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle go off over the top with that Olympic type speed those guys have, or slow down the run, right? A balanced defense wouldn't work in that scheme. We had to pick our poison, and the poison was let the running game go off. Let's go ahead and eliminate Waddle and eliminate Hill. Gotta say, it turned out pretty well. If we slow down that running game, it significantly impacts what those guys can do. Now, that's the defense holding it down in order to go ahead and be an impact. What do we need to do on offense? Look, as contrary to popular belief, Zach Wilson had a really impressive game this past week against Miami. We're talking about a guy who averaged 10 yards per attempt, a guy who played a clean game, 66% completion percentage, and 210 yards. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, he didn't throw any touchdown passes. Let's be real. He literally came 2 yards away from having 2 touchdown passes to add to his stat line on that game. Instead, they turned into rushing touchdowns because our boy Brees Hall got stopped just short. I expect Zach Wilson to have a good game this week. But more importantly, I expect the running game to be more involved. The Green Bay Packers rushing defense is ranked 29th in the NFL. That obviously is the weakness to this particular defense. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that, their passing defense is rated second, and that should be concerning. I personally have looked at the games, and when they faced a wide receiver one in Justin Jefferson against Minnesota, I saw a secondary get torched for 184 and 2 touchdowns. I think that defense right now is still in the situation where they're not 100% there, right? We're talking about elite playmakers on that roster in the secondary from last year and previous years, and I get that. But it's 2022. It's this season. And until we see it, then to me, I don't see what people are afraid of when it comes to the secondary. The biggest fear we have to worry about this game is this going to be the game where Aaron Rodgers decides to go ahead and play with his hair on fire, right? We saw last year when they were starting off slow, he stated that everybody needed to calm down and just relax. Once he stated those words, the Packers went on a rampage, right? And they made the playoffs. We didn't hear those words from freaking, Aaron Rodgers this past week, right? You hear stuff like, Jair talking about, if we lose to the Jets, then we really have to start worrying. Is that a shot at the Jets being mediocre, or was that them just stating a fact? Like, if we lose this next game, concerns have to be made. I will say this. If the New York Jets go into Lambeau and win this game, it's going to be that impact game we were talking about. The one we needed that was going to force feed the narrative shift. Because not only did we just win a divisional game in Miami very, very convincingly, now we're talking about going into Lambeau Field that has a 26-4 record in terms of wins, losses over the last God knows how long. If we go in there and we beat the Packers, it's a statement game because we're doing it with a very, very young roster. So it's a youth movement. It's a win that can give those guys the kind of motivation and the kind of inspiration to know that they can go anywhere and be impactful. They can go ahead and win games. If the Packers win this game, they beat the Jets, right? No one's expecting the Jets to win this game. Hell, I don't think most Jets fans expect to go into Lambeau and win this game. The fact of the matter is, we have everything to gain from this game, and the Packers have everything to lose. If they lose, it's panic time. What's going on? Is this time for us to shift into a rebuild? In terms of cap space right now, they're kind of hampered with how much they're paying Aaron Rodgers. Can the team actually afford to go ahead and bring in weapons to make him or elevate his game to get better? Because without a true number one wide receiver, we're seeing him struggle. This game is going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one regardless. I don't believe it's going to be a blowout. I believe it's going to be a close game. And I do think that at the end of the day, what it boils down to is which defense actually shows up. I do believe the defense is going to be very impactful in deciding who wins this game. And I think, of course, as I stated before, it's all about complementary football. If the Jets show up there in Lambeau Field, the offense is clicking, the defense is clicking, the special team has a couple of plays, we have a very good chance of leaving Lambeau at 4-2. If we show up and we act like we're a young roster and we make mistakes and we keep giving up penalties the way we did against Miami to the tune of almost 105 yards, we can find ourselves really quickly looking at a scoreboard where we have a two score deficit. It's really either or. Like, we really don't know what to expect when it comes to our performance. I will say this. Zach Wilson is 2-0 since coming back. One of 3 undefeated quarterbacks thus far this year in the NFL. If he can make it 3-0 playing against his idol in Aaron Rodgers, I think it sets the tone as to what this team can accomplish this season. At that point, a lot of the individuals who are talking about this being hyperbole when it comes to the Jets, can we honestly start saying, like, hey, the goal was for this team to show competency. It was to see Zach Wilson show progression, that he can go ahead and play in this league. If we beat the Packers at 4-2, going to Denver next week with a struggling Russell Wilson, is it feasible to start talking about, hey, the Jets can legitimately be vying for a playoff spot? This game is huge for us. It's huge for us. If we lose, it's not the end of the world. It's Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field. The coaching is still elite. The quarterback is still elite. Everything else is up in the air. But when you've got those two things and those two components working, anything can happen. But if we go in there and we beat them, the conversation shifts. These aren't the same old Jets. Are we talking playoffs? So, with that said, what are my predictions for this week's game? Well, as I've told you guys, I I stated in my original video that the Jets were going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. We lost. I then stated that we were going to lose to the Cleveland Browns, and then we won. Following week, a struggling Cincinnati Bengals. I thought to myself, man, with that offensive line the way it is, we're going to take a win. We're going to get a W. We lost against the Steelers, who I believe to be a pretty good team. Nonetheless, got an elite coaching staff. I predicted us to get a loss, and of course, we won that game. The Miami Dolphins, let's be honest, we all saw that video. I predicted a Miami Dolphins win, right? So, in homage to what's been working, since I am batting 100% in being wrong when it comes to claiming the winner for the New York Jets games, I'm going to go ahead and pick this week's winner. This week's game is going to be a 28 to 17 game. The winner, the Green Bay Packers. Now, as I want to make it known, I just told you all of the things that I think could go right, can go wrong. I just expressed to you what I think the Jets can bring to the table to win this game. Now, again, I'm not superstitious, but perhaps I'm a little bit stitious. And with that being said, I'm going to stick to the game plan that's been working for me in these videos and proclaiming who these winners are going to be. And I'm going to do my part as a Jets fan. I believe that the Green Bay Packers are going to do just enough to go ahead and get that W at Lambeau Field to the tune of 28 to 17. 28 to 17, Green Bay Packers. I'm excited. Nonetheless, as a Jets fan, you should be excited. It's a good position to be in when we're talking about going into Lambeau Field and potentially being able to win a game. But nonetheless, we're 3-2 right now. We're second in the division. There's a very real possibility that the Kansas City Chiefs beat Buffalo. And if that's the case, and the Jets pull off a win, because by all intents and purposes, special teams shows up, the defense shows up, the offense shows up. Because if that does happen, I think it's just as easily the Jets are 28 to the Packers 17. And that means we go to 4-2. And if the freaking Chiefs do what they're supposed to do and they beat the Bills, the New York Jets can be first in the AFC East. Man, what a time to be alive. That's all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel. I'm going to be doing a new giveaway. Actually, based off of the results of the game this week, I will be doing a giveaway. I will go ahead and be putting it on Twitter as to what that's going to be. So if you're not following me on Twitter, that's at New York Jets Sit Rep. You can see the information down here. Follow me on all the platforms. But I'm going to be identifying a giveaway for my Curtis Martin autographed football. I'm going to be giving that one away here on the giveaway. But again, you have to be following me obviously here on YouTube, and of course following me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook if you got it, you know what I'm saying? But follow me on those platforms. I'm going to be identifying the rules on Twitter, but you're hearing it here first. If the New York Jets win this game on Sunday, there's going to be a new giveaway for a Curtis Martin autographed football, because man, that's a game changer for us. All right. With that said, till next time, go Jets. Let's go.
Congratulations, brother.
Are you recording already?
I heard y'all coming. I just stopped so that way the door wouldn't get me like last time.
You're welcome. I need you to get gas in my car for today, Edward.
Let me see. What did it say? Okay, yeah, I get it.